When Elvis Presley died on August 16, 1977, the world mourned the king of rock and roll. But behind the grief, a question loomed. What happened to the fortune of one of the most iconic entertainers in history? Elvis wasn't just a musician. He was a cultural phenomenon who revolutionized music, film, and fashion. At the height of his career, he was one of the highest-paid performers in the world. His mansion, Graceland, became a symbol of success and excess. His concerts sold out in minutes. His records broke every chart imaginable. But here's what most people don't know. When Elvis died at just 42 years old, his estate was worth far less than anyone expected. In fact, it was on the verge of collapse. The inheritance left behind wasn't just about money, it was about legacy, control, and survival. And at the center of it all was a 9-year-old girl who would inherit everything, Lisa Marie Presley. This is the story of how a crumbling fortune was transformed into a business empire worth hundreds of millions. It's a story of brilliant decisions, devastating mistakes, and family drama that played out over decades. It's about the price of fame, the weight of a name, and the question that haunts every fortune. Can it last? Because what happened to Elvis Presley's money didn't end with his death. It only began there. Let's go back to August 1977, the day the music died and the battle for Elvis's fortune began. To understand the inheritance, you need to understand the man who left it behind. Elvis Aaron Presley was born in Tupelo, Mississippi in 1935, into a working-class family. His childhood was marked by poverty, but music became his escape. By the time he was 21, he had signed with RCA Records and released Heartbreak Hotel, a song that would change everything. Within months, Elvis became a sensation. He didn't just sing, he moved. His performances were electric, controversial, and impossible to ignore. Conservative America was scandalized, young people were mesmerized, and the money started pouring in. By the late 1950s, Elvis was not only a recording artist, but also a movie star. He made over 30 films, most of which were commercial hits. He performed in Las Vegas to packed audiences night after night. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, orchestrated deals that made Elvis one of the wealthiest entertainers of his era. But wealth doesn't always mean financial security. Elvis was generous to a fault. He bought Cadillacs for strangers. He gave away jewelry, houses, and cash without hesitation. He maintained a large entourage known as the Memphis Mafia, whose salaries and expenses he covered entirely. Graceland itself was a financial black hole, requiring constant upkeep, staff, and extravagant renovations. And then there was Colonel Parker. Parker took 50% of Elvis's earnings, an arrangement almost unheard of in the entertainment industry. While Elvis performed, Parker controlled the business. He made decisions that prioritized short-term profit over long-term planning. He sold the rights to Elvis's music catalog early on, a move that would haunt the estate for decades. By the mid-1970s, Elvis's health was deteriorating. His addiction to prescription drugs was spiraling out of control. His performances became erratic. His weight fluctuated. He was isolated, surrounded by yes men, and struggling to maintain the image of the king. When he died in 1977, the autopsy revealed a cocktail of drugs in his system. The official cause was a heart attack, but the real cause was years of unchecked excess. And the fortune he left behind? It was estimated at around $5 million. $5 million. For a man who had earned hundreds of millions over his career. After taxes, debts, and expenses, the estate was worth closer to $1 million. Graceland alone cost $500,000 a year to maintain. The estate was bleeding money and there was no clear plan to stop it. Elvis's will was straightforward. Everything went to his father, Vernon Presley, with the stipulation that after Vernon's death, the estate would pass to Elvis's daughter, Lisa Marie, and his grandmother, Minnie Mae Presley. Vernon was in his 60s, grieving, and overwhelmed. He had no experience managing a fortune or a business. He relied on advisors, lawyers, and executors to guide him, but even they couldn't see a clear path forward. The estate was crumbling, and Lisa Marie, just 9 years old, stood to inherit a financial disaster. But then something extraordinary happened. A decision was made that would not only save the estate, but transform it into one of the most valuable celebrity estates in the world. In 1979, Vernon Presley died. The estate was now fully in the hands of executors, with Lisa Marie set to inherit at age 25. But there was a problem. At the current rate, there would be nothing left to inherit. Enter Priscilla Presley. Priscilla, Elvis's ex-wife and Lisa Marie's mother, was not named in Elvis's will. Legally, she had no claim to the estate. But she had something more valuable: vision. In 1979, Priscilla petitioned to become co-executor of the estate alongside the National Bank of Commerce in Memphis. Her argument was simple: the estate was being mismanaged, and if something didn't change, Lisa Marie would inherit nothing. The court agreed. Priscilla was granted co-executorship, and she immediately got to work. Her first decision was radical: open Graceland to the public. At the time, Graceland was a financial drain. It sat empty, costing the estate thousands of dollars every month. Advisors warned Priscilla that turning it into a tourist attraction would be tacky, that it would tarnish Elvis's legacy. But Priscilla saw an opportunity. Elvis wasn't just a musician, he was a brand. And Graceland wasn't just a house, it was a shrine. In 1982, Graceland opened its doors to the public. Within the first month, it attracted over 3,000 visitors a day. By the end of the first year, it had generated millions in revenue. Graceland became the second most visited house in America, after the White House. But Priscilla didn't stop there. She understood that the real value wasn't in what Elvis had left behind, it was in what he represented. She began licensing Elvis's name and image, creating merchandise, and negotiating deals that brought Elvis's music back into the mainstream. She fought to regain control of Elvis's music catalog, which had been sold off years earlier. She partnered with companies to create Elvis-themed products, from stamps to slot machines. She turned the estate into a business. By 1993, when Lisa Marie turned 25 and officially inherited the estate, it was worth over $100 million. From $1 million to $100 million in just 14 years, it was one of the most remarkable financial turnarounds in history. But the story didn't end there. In fact, the most dramatic chapter was yet to come. Because Lisa Marie Presley, the sole heir to the king's fortune, was about to make decisions that would both build and destroy that legacy. When Lisa Marie Presley inherited the estate in 1993, she wasn't just inheriting money, she was inheriting an empire, a legacy, and a burden. At 25, she was thrust into the spotlight as the keeper of her father's name. The estate was thriving, but it required constant management, negotiation, and decision-making. Lisa Marie could have stepped back and let the executors continue running the business, but she didn't. She took control. For the first few years, things went well. The estate continued to grow. Graceland remained a top tourist destination. Licensing deals brought in steady revenue. Elvis's music experienced a resurgence in popularity, thanks in part to reissues and compilation albums. But then in 2005, Lisa Marie made a decision that would change everything. She sold 85% of ELVIS Presley Enterprises, the company that managed the estate, to a private equity firm called CKX Inc. for $100 million. On paper, it seemed like a smart move. She retained ownership of Graceland and 15% of the company. She walked away with a massive cash payout, and she was still entitled to royalties and income from the estate. But here's what most people didn't realize. The sale meant she no longer had control. CKX Inc. now owned the rights to Elvis's name, image, and likeness. They controlled the merchandising, the licensing, and the business decisions. Lisa Marie had traded long-term control for short-term cash. And that cash? It didn't last. Between 2005 and 2015, Lisa Marie's personal fortune evaporated. Reports emerged of mismanagement, lavish spending, and mounting debts. She sued her former business manager, claiming he had squandered her wealth through risky investments and excessive fees. He countersued, claiming she had spent recklessly. Court documents revealed shocking details. Lisa Marie had allegedly spent hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on expenses, from private jets to luxury homes. Her fortune, once valued at over $100 million, was gone. By 2018, she was reportedly millions of dollars in debt, but the estate itself, it continued to thrive. In 2013, CKX Inc. was sold to Authentic Brands Group, a company that specializes in managing celebrity estates and brands. Under their management, Elvis Presley Enterprises flourished. Graceland expanded with new exhibits, hotels, and entertainment venues. Licensing deals brought Elvis's image to new generations. In 2023, the estate was valued at over $500 million. Lisa Marie, meanwhile, struggled financially. She lived modestly compared to the empire her father had left behind. And in January 2023, she died suddenly at the age 54, following a cardiac arrest. Her death sent shockwaves through the world. But it also raised a new question: what would happen to the estate now? Because Lisa Marie had children, and under her will they were set to inherit everything. Lisa Marie Presley had 3 daughters: Riley Keough, an actress and model, and twins Harper and Finley Lockwood. Under Lisa Marie's original will, her mother Priscilla was named as trustee. But in 2016, Lisa Marie amended the will, removing Priscilla and naming Riley and her late son Benjamin Keough as co-trustees. When Lisa Marie died, the will became a battleground. Priscilla challenged the amendment, claiming it was invalid. She argued that the signature on the document was suspicious, that she had never been properly notified of the change, and that she should remain as trustee. Riley, on the other hand, argued that her mother's wishes were clear. She wanted her children to control the estate, not Priscilla. The dispute played out publicly, with media coverage dissecting every detail. It was a painful reminder of the dysfunction that had plagued the Presley family for decades. But then in May 2023, Priscilla and Riley reached a settlement. Under the terms, Riley became the sole trustee of the estate. Priscilla received a lump sum payment and would continue to be buried at Graceland alongside Elvis, as had always been planned. The twins, Harper and Finley, would inherit equal shares when they came of age. Riley, now in control, vowed to protect her grandfather's legacy and honor her mother's memory. But the question remains: can the Presley fortune survive another generation? Because history has shown that fortunes, no matter how vast, are fragile. They require stewardship, vision, and discipline. And in the Presley family, those qualities have been inconsistent. Elvis built an empire through talent and charisma. Priscilla saved it through business acumen. Lisa Marie inherited it, but struggled to sustain it. And now, Riley and her sisters hold the keys. The estate is worth hundreds of millions, but wealth alone doesn't guarantee legacy. The story of Elvis Presley's inheritance is not just about money, it's about the fragility of fortune, the complexity of legacy, and the human cost of fame. When Elvis died in 1977, he left behind a crumbling estate and a 9-year-old daughter. Against all odds, that estate was transformed into a business empire worth hundreds of millions. But along the way, it also caused pain, division, and loss. Lisa Marie lived her entire life in the shadow of her father's legacy. She inherited his fortune, but she also inherited his struggles, the pressure, the expectations, the weight of a name that was larger than life. In the end, she couldn't escape it. Her daughters now carry that burden. Riley, Harper, and Finley are the inheritors of not just wealth, but history. They are the guardians of Graceland, the keepers of Elvis's memory, and the stewards of a brand that has endured for over 70 years. The estate continues to generate millions of dollars every year. Graceland remains one of the most visited homes in America. Elvis's music still plays on radios around the world. His image appears on everything from T-shirts to coffee mugs. But the family behind the fortune has paid a price. Elvis died young, isolated, and struggling with addiction. Vernon died grieving and overwhelmed. Lisa Marie died in debt, despite inheriting a fortune. And the next generation is left to navigate the same challenges their ancestors faced. The Presley inheritance is a reminder that wealth is not invincible. It requires vision to create, discipline to maintain, and wisdom to preserve. It can lift a family to extraordinary heights, but it can also tear them apart. Today, the estate is stable, but the future is uncertain. Will Riley and her sisters protect the legacy? Will they grow the fortune? Or will the weight of the king's crown become too heavy to bear? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. The story of Elvis Presley's inheritance is far from over. Because as long as Graceland stands, as long as his music plays, and as long as the name Presley echoes through history, the fortune and the family will endure. And maybe that's the real inheritance, not the money, not the mansion, but the memory of a man who changed the world and the responsibility of those who carry his name.